Okay, Pacific time, it's 1:10. It's March 29th, 2021. In the critical thinking series, again, examples of you guys are not in the right conversations as a species, as a culture, 99.6% of you, about George Floyd. I haven't really watched much of the video from last year, and I kind of don't want to because it's horrible stuff to see. But just watching a few seconds of it, like where people are saying he can't breathe or he's unresponsive, and you see the police officer with the knee on the back of his neck and other police officers just looking around when the crowd is not really that hostile yet and not looking at George Floyd. They're looking at their own protection. You can see that they're negligent in their duties. They're not fit for their duties. So for me, it's easy to say guilty, although if you watch the court case and what they are saying are the crimes, I think he and many other officers and the entire culture are guilty. Now, one of the arguments on the defendant side is it is not, a big cultural, case. It's about one act, one person, and of course, they're using a defense where he was doing what he was trained to do. So again, that's a contradiction, right? You guys got to see. You can't say that. For example, sometimes a police officer might do something different than their training, if the due diligence brings it to that. Now, here the person was supposed to do something different than their training. They weren't supposed to do that aggressive for that long. I could, with the permission of a police officer, demonstrate a role play where I'm holding them down, where I can have my knee on the back of their lower back. So I could do that and just hold their hand myself. And it would work in most situations, depending on size and things. And if the person didn't die from asphyxiation, then chances are the technique I would demonstrate with a willing police officer would also have been satisfactory. So again, it is abusive. So I don't agree that a court case that involves especially a defense that says this is how they're trained, it's perfect what he did, should not have a cultural repair aspect to it. And I include cultural repair in everything I do. And in fact, in court, whether I'd be the plaintiff or the defendant, I would say, I'm sorry, but it has to be full transparencies, cameras as much as you want, witnesses in the public proceedings as much as you want. The only time it would be if a judge asks, the two parties for a private conference. But even then, I might say at the beginning of this conference that is in private with the judge, is I reserve the right to say exactly what happened when I come out. So be careful what you say. And that's the transparency that I have. So again, you have an opportunity here. Whatever crime you want to charge this officer with and his accomplices, because in a way it goes beyond who is beside him in the video allowing this to happen, but also, for example, the lawyer that defends this is also an accomplice, that it's okay to have done that and keep doing that. Because if you separate culture from one act, then again, you're not living in reality. You're not managing your own futures as a species. So for me, again, you're not having the right conversations. And I'd like to see what the police officer says about how he feels about how things turned out, and how he might even say, I wish, I'd received different kind of training. I wish things had turned out differently. I hope what comes out of it is retraining in a lot of situations. And if he doesn't say that, then this person has no remorse. So even if you give them a smaller accusation of a crime, categories is go hard on them. Go harder than the regular penalty for a smaller crime, because there's no remorse. Nobody wants to shift. So a judge really is somebody that guides how cultures change over time. So you've got an opportunity here, and I tell you, it's not so far looking like you're going to use it. And I want to say something else, that about a year ago I did share some lady's video. She was a dark-skinned lady who knew a lot of the history of the life of George Floyd. And she, I think, was very accurate in saying it's not okay what happened, but this guy is not a saint. And this guy made a lot of bad decisions. Now, his life was, a little bit better later on. But don't make him, a saint. And because if you make him a saint, if you make him your new symbol of, a messiah almost, or a culture repair to have been respected in certain ways that don't apply, then it's crazy. It's almost like eventually Hitler or Trump or Trudeau or Stephen Harper or Andrew Scheer, that are Canadians, that have made decisions that had incredibly negative impact that we're still feeling today. That Harper attacked science in Canada, and that we are suffering now from a lack of competent, scientifically trained people and institutions, and that we're not even close to finishing suffering from these decisions. You're not the species that you think you are when it comes to sentience and sapience. So again, like I've been saying, it's easy for me to witness this, and no matter what happens, I can tell already from the beginning of the conversation that I'm right in saying that as a species, you have not undergone your maturation process. You're preteen. You're preteen, but now you've got weapons of mass destruction. There's still the same kind of behaviors that there was thousands of years ago that are cruel, including to your own children, and innocents dying violent deaths. It's still happening, and you're not discussing your own psychohistory as a species. So because you're not, I watch this and I think this is ridiculous. What they're accusing him of or not, what the defenses are or not to this person, it's ridiculous. It really shows that you are still the species from thousands of years ago, and why I've been saying for years that this is likely the last crash of your proto-civilization, that you keep cycling through these crashes because you haven't undergone your first industrial revolution of humanics, human thinking tools, and to have undergone a maturation process as a collective, as a species, is the evidence is there. But this time, you've got nuclear weapons, you've got plastics in the ocean, you've got food as a majority in grocery stores that are unhealthy for you. You've got people that are using less and less the higher functions of their brains. And then you think that just using one person as a scapegoat, either in law enforcement or in education or in medical or in politics, is somehow not proving to me, again, that you're disconnected from reality. This person, the police officer, probably did dozens, if not more, of things in the last year before that happened, just 1 year, that if you were a mature species, he would have gone to jail for. So because you're not having the right conversations about yourselves and your culture, is again, no matter what happens with this case, I can tell you that I can't force myself to respect the norm, right? The 9 out of 10 nice people in society who are still refusing to grow up and have the right conversations, even though they'll be at first the only ones, and it doesn't feel good, trying to have these conversations.